Welcome to the Capstone Conversation, where you learn about what's happening in the greater East Bay. I am your host, Jared Ash. Today, we are joined by three awesome young West Contra Costa County leaders. Three great young leaders that are really pushing for some change in the way we do things and the vision for West County. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Tessa Rudnick, the mayor of El Cerrito. Do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Mayor of El Cerrito. I was elected in 2020. I am not running for reelection, which is a very bittersweet thing. It's been an amazing 4 years. El Cerrito is an incredible community. We're right at the tip between Alameda County and Contra Costa County. And we're very proudly Contra Costa County. Collaborating with our neighbors in West County has really made a huge difference for El Cerrito. And it's something that we are very committed to, is making sure that rising tide lifts all boats. And there's a lot of different overlap between myself and Councilmember Zepeda and Councilmember and former Mayor Walker Griffin. So I'm excited to jump into this conversation.
Councilman Zepeda, do you want to introduce yourself? And
Cesar Cerrito, council member in the city of Richmond, District 2, which encompasses from Hilltop, all the west side, all the way down to Point Richmond, and a little sliver of the Marina Bay. And then, as I generally joke around, is if you go swimming anywhere in Richmond, you're in my district. Even if the land might be a different district, once you get into the water, it's mine. Welcome to Richmond.
Alex?
Thank you, Jared, and it's good to see all my friends. Alex Walker Griffin here. I had the pleasure of serving on the Hercules City Council, West County boy, born and raised. Hercules is honestly an amazing community. It's upper middle class community with mostly POC folks, and it's honestly the essence of the American dream. Just walking on the waterfront, every person that you come in contact with has a different story, speaking a variety of different languages, hearing a bunch of different beliefs. I think that's one of the best things about West County is you never know who you're going to encounter on the street. And Hercules really embodies that. And we have a bunch of community events that highlight that every single year.
One of the things that I want to highlight about the three of you is that you are on the younger side compared to the average age of elected officials in the greater Bay Area overall. What excitement does that bring? What are you all bringing to the table? What view, perspective, and vision do you want to share? And we'll let Alex start first this time.
Thank you, Jared. For me, I was elected when I was 23 and I'm 26 right now. I'm the only council member in my city, pretty much in our history, that grew up in Hercules. So it's the perspective of somebody that went to elementary, middle, and high school in the city. I'm also the only renter on my city council as well, bringing that perspective of what it's like. I like to see it as I have a more modern approach to what the city looks like because now I am that young working professional that in the next 2 years looks to have a family. And that's really trying to settle roots in the city that I grew up in. So more often than not, a large base, I guess you can say, like my followers reflect that. Usually a little bit older than me, but in that same sort of echelon, right? You're getting ready to start a family if they haven't started one already, probably mid or get it or early or leaning towards that mid part of their career. Really bringing that perspective, and then also someone who's interconnected as well. Being from this area, obviously you're going to know what this means to grow up here. You're going to know all the little things, the inside things that you probably wouldn't realize if you didn't grow up here. Heck, most of my teachers actually still teach at the schools that I went to. So to have that insider knowledge of what the vibe, I guess you could say the vibe is like in this area, I think is invaluable.
Cesar, you want to add something?
Alex is hitting it right there, especially for someone that grew up in the area and you have that perspective and not just perspective also, but the energy. And it's got to be a balance between having all this knowledge because you've been in political office for 40, 50, 60 years, and then a balance of bringing in and also passing that baton over, which is really important. And I feel like a lot of individuals sometimes really want to hold on to their seat till the very end. Prior to me being on the city council, unfortunately, I took the seat of a member of an elected board for the West County Wastewater District, and he was there till he passed away. And a lot of these seats, sometimes they don't move until somebody passes away. And it's unfortunate because sometimes they don't pass that baton and that knowledge and that mentorship. For us that are on the younger side, it's important to bring in that energy. And the other thing as well, that is this balance. We all have a day job, and it makes it really difficult sometimes to being able to balance that out. And the public forgets. They think that we are elected full time, which we are, but we don't get paid full time. It's the smaller the city, I think it's just a couple $100 a month of a stipend. And that's just not enough to make a living. So most of us are really volunteering. That's our job, is to volunteer in the city and having that balance. And the older you are, and if you're retired and you're probably going to be okay because you have your retirement payments coming in and you can serve 24/7 in the city. And for us, we still serve 24/7 times plus, right? Tessa is a young parent. So she's serving not just the public, but her family, herself, her job. Alex, soon to be maybe one day a young parent, right? All of that. But as a
Not too young.
not too
Just kind
Thank you.
okay. Right? So all that we have to balance out, and we have against us when we're younger. We really try to push in for some change because we did grow up here. And I went to Helms Elementary here at Richmond High, and I stayed in Richmond and want to be able to create that change that I've always looked for. So how do we have that balance of the young, the older, passing the baton, and you really wanted to get more involved, and knowing that balance that many people won't be able to serve in office if they don't have an okay job that allows them that balance too.
Uh, As you say that, I think about Danville, and where I think the average person has been on that council for 20 years and has been retired most of that time. A lot of other cities where they are retired individuals for the most part. Um, Tessa, you're raising a family. Usually people become PTA president and then run for office. You may go the other way here, but tell us a little bit about that balance with family and that perspective it adds.
Sure. I really resonated first on with both of what my colleagues said. I grew up in the area too, so I'm really invested in understanding these relationships and why people are committed to this community. I have a constituent who lives here in El Cerrito, and our grandfathers were childhood friends. These are the little things that connects us and roots us to this community. Cesar gave a really complete answer to a lot of the challenges that we're facing as the younger elected. Aside from just getting this seat, which is very challenging, it's also maintaining, we're that bookend generation where we're taking care of our parents, we're taking care of the elders in our families, and then we're also, in my case, taking care of children. And I use the city's resources for children, which is I'm a very heavy user of our rec department. And I'm in the parks, you know, multiple times a week. For me, it's about having that perspective and leveraging the real world experience that I have of being a member of this community. Also, I'm the first millennial to be elected to the El Cerrito City Council. I'm dealing with a lot of the challenges of being, we're lucky enough to be able to buy a home before the housing prices got to the point where I wouldn't be able to purchase a home in El Cerrito. But we made it in by the skin of our teeth. And now we're dealing with a lot of I look to what my neighbor is paying in property taxes and what I'm paying in property taxes. Prop 13 is quite a situation that we're dealing with here in the state. And it's unfortunate that it's our generation that really is struggling with decisions that were made in the late 70s.
As somebody who has three daughters, 5 to 10, I'm amazed at how much time and energy you all just put in with a day job and being a parent. Like, I do volunteer stuff with a variety of boards and commissions, but not to the level of all of you. So just the utmost respect at the sacrifice that it takes, whether you have kids or you don't have kids. Let's talk about something that you guys are really good at and can probably teach everybody. You've got social media. It is part of the job. People connect with you not just on the streets, right? When you're walking your dog or something, but in all sorts of ways. How do you use social media to your advantage to communicate to the public as well as campaign and serve the community?
I'll start with the little one because I know that my colleagues are going to have a lot to say on this. It really is both a blessing and a curse that we have social media, because the expectation is that we are supposed to give of our lives in service in these public meetings, but then also on our time outside of public meetings using this public medium. And all of three of us have intersectional identities, which have made it so that we are all targets in any way, shape, or form from people who are going to prejudge us or dislike us because of our identities. That's what makes it really challenging, is that, and it could just be how deep I've been in it for the past few months, but it's also to take a step back and realize that our role is to govern. There's nothing in I don't think in anyone's city charter or in state law or in federal law that says you must put your life on social media for people to care. But we do, because we care about our communities and we want our constituents to know. We want the people who want to vote for us so that there is fresh perspective where they want to know our perspective. It's both this amazing thing that we have social media. It's also really challenging because it opens us up to a lot of pain, frustration, anguish for just trying to do the right thing and to share who we are.
For sure thing. I'm a part of Generation Z. I'll just say it. I'm at the very beginning of it. I grew up with social media. It's just always been around in my lifetime. But the benefit of social media, it's the fastest way to connect with people. And I'll be honest with you, I have more people DM me on Instagram or reach out to me on Facebook for requests than they actually email me. My email is pretty silent in terms of constituent requests. And that's actually how I'm able to connect with most people. We have, just like every city, we have our community Facebook groups. And what do I post? My Facebook page, my elected Facebook page. Hey, updates or just thoughts here and there. And I think the beauty of it is when people meet me on the street, they realize, oh my God, it's not just a Facebook page. It's an actual guy. It's not some staffer who's running. I'm like, no, if I liked your comment or I responded to your comment, that was actually me. You can get the response in real time. And I think some people appreciate that. And it takes away from the belief that elected officials are these distant people who have no connection to you. The downside is you have to be very mindful of pretty much everything that you do. When I got my blue check on Instagram, a verification check, I didn't realize that if I were to ever at the time, I didn't realize if I comment something, it's automatically going to be the top comment on that post. The first time when I realized that, it was because I would have these mass exodus of people looking at my Instagram stories, following me out of nowhere. I'm thinking, wow, what did I post that was that popular? I haven't posted in a couple of days. No, it was the blue check. It's things like that that you have to think about. And also thinking about that some of your stuff can be subpoenaed if people want to, right? There's all these new gray areas of the California Public Records Act that start coming up because of this, right? Now, say someone like me who's had a Facebook since they were what? I had my Facebook since I was like maybe 12 or 11. It's been a part of my life, literally the majority of my life at this point. Now I have to think, okay, down the road, can this potentially harm me? Or in the case that some people might think about it, is this a way that, like, how can I maintain my privacy? Because on top of going to Lucky's, being guaranteed to run into someone, I have to also think, okay, is somebody hiding behind my back, hiding behind me on my social media post, trying to use it against me? This is another little last story here. Every Instagram post that I make, I always look at like the demographics, right? The infographics of it, like how many people viewed it, who sent it. There's always at least 2 to 3 people that save my post. And I never understood why. Who and why? I don't know why. And I always wonder what they use them for. So it's things like that are so new that 10 years ago, our colleagues wouldn't have had to think about.
But that's an interesting perspective, right? As we think about kids today, with the exception of Snapchat, which goes away instantaneously, all of this stuff, and even then you can still get a screenshot of it, all of this stuff lives forever. And you got to teach high schoolers and middle schoolers now those stupid pictures of you drinking or doing something inappropriate with somebody of the same sex or opposite sex, that matters to your future. And it also just goes to your behavior, but you're really dealing with something. When I was 16 or 19, we didn't think about some of that stuff at that point, right? And most 16 and 19-year-olds don't think about running for office and what that entails. Cesar, you want to say anything else on this?
And then social media is a double-edged sword. I think, as my colleagues have shared already, you have some community forums that can be very vile, and they attack and they say things that are not true. And for our own personal stuff, as Tessa was mentioning, we're all targets because we're different. We all have some kind of something that someone doesn't like. And our social media is a great way for people to be able to follow us, not just on social media. For myself, what I have done, for example, whenever I post something, I no longer post where I am that moment.
Yep.
I wait a couple hours, maybe a day or two, because I have had people try to follow me around. For my own safety, we have to try to do that. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, that event was yesterday. Yeah, exactly. That was. Sometimes I post immediately if I feel very confident and comfortable. If something's really going on that I want to get it on that day. But every once in a while, I do think about it a couple of times because social media is out there. There's new laws that are out there right now in regards to social media and what is perceived as personal versus public. And when can you say something? When can you? So for us, for example, we're not allowed to delete some comments, or that was the thought. So there was a new law that just came out, or actually new ruling from the Supreme Court that is questioning that. And that is saying if it's a personal something, then you can delete it, even though you're an elected official. So rulings are always happening. Something's changing, trying to protect, I think, a little bit of our privacy and a little bit of our safety, because some individuals, like there's one individual who keeps creating private groups with other council members. And I was like, no, you can't. I will violate the Brown Act. I don't know what you're going to talk to us about. Well, you can't do that. Social media is great because we do also get the word out. People like knowing what's going on. Some people are not able to go out all the time, but they appreciate the updates we might provide from our community, updates that are going on, or things that will be happening. So again, double-edged sword, but learning how to use it, using it properly so that we're all safe and our community is also safe and our community also feels educated and that they know what's going on around our different districts or different cities.
One thing I'd want to add to that is that what I've done as a rule of thumb, and it sucks that it has to be this way, but it is what it is. I don't promote events that I'm going to be at unless I know I'm going to be there with a uniformed police officer. And that is what is so frustrating, because I would love to say, hey, I'm going to go to these neighbors are doing a block party. I'm going to be there. See you there. But if I'm not going to be there with a uniformed police officer, I can't do it. I'll post about that block party I went to the day after. Or if it's a volunteer cleanup event, I'll post about it the day after. But I won't post about something before I go unless I'm with an officer.
That's very unfortunate, Tessa. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've experienced why it's important that there has to be, and I would rather officers be using their time for other things. But it's unfortunate that this is the climate we're in. Rule of thumb for electeds and it's depending on who it is and why they're being targeted. It's better to not go to events unless you know that there's a uniform, or at least promote events you will be at. I think is the better way of framing it.
Let's talk about AI in government. You're dealing with a lot. Schools, I know you're not on school boards. You got to imagine 40% or 80% of high school students right now are using ChatGPT to submit their papers. How do you see government at a local level here in the East Bay being early adopters of AI, and how can it improve government?
This is my day job, funny enough. I work in public sector technology for local government. There's two answers to it. There's the staff side and the staff work, and then there's the elected side and the policy side. To focus more on the staff side first, I think it's really important that all cities have an AI policy, or at least get a draft policy going so that the city manager can feel comfortable with pointing to what is an acceptable use of AI for staff purposes. It could be what tools are appropriate to use. Is it okay to use people's likeness or voice? Having that really clearly defined. What I see more on the policy side and on the elected side is that a lot of community members are using ChatGPT for writing their letters to us, which they're certainly welcome to, but it's very clear when you're reading it that this was not written by a human. Like there's certain blogs will be written and you'll read these posts. Like, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Or just it's written in a way that there's a certain authenticity that's lost when you're using AI at this point.
I think one thing that it could possibly be the benefit of it, and this is probably the Gen Z speaking in it, is you can take massive amounts of documents and then just ask, can you condense this and make it readable for the average person? Because more often than not, what as council members always, and this is just elected officials in general, we have to summarize months worth of information, hundreds of pages to someone in 30 seconds. And they're not going to usually want to hear the backstory that went into it, the historical stuff that ties into it, how the state legislature ties into it. What does this mean from the federal government? I think there's an opportunity there to consolidate it and help make an FAQ for people to read in less than 30 seconds. Because usually, and this is, I don't know, this has been my experience. A lot of times when I have constituents upset about like the Hercules hub, right? Because they're like saying it's not fast enough. They said it would be here 10 years ago. I have to break down, okay, this is what this means. This is what this means. And then the moment I start talking about that the ferry system is ran by WIDA and I have to explain WIDA and how the federal agencies work into that. And they're like, wait, what? It's not the sea that does it? No, my friend, it's not. I think that's where it can be a benefit. I'm breaking down how government works in less than 30 seconds and the different agencies that we all interact with on a weekly basis.
Like, do we need to have some guidelines on how to use it, when not to use it?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
becoming a little more and more scary because they can use your likeness, your voice, your whatever, and it's already out there. I know one of my colleagues uses AI to write their agenda item.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I was like, okay, I guess it's a tool. I haven't used it, but yeah, they use that to create their agenda items. But I guess we have to learn more and see how we can use it. It might be something good, but we need to make sure that as we're learning more about it, that we go at it maybe a little bit slower so that we protect people and protect ourselves as well.
The other thing people always talk about, they don't want the government to know their information. And I've heard that for the 15 years I've been in this field. But what's interesting to me is I'm much more concerned about the private sector. In the public sector, we have contracts. We have, and you can clearly spell out what data is being saved, what data cannot be saved, how that data is being used. And that's the beauty of the public sector. Once the private sector is getting all this data, when you are doing this machine learning, that's when you need to be really cautious.
I do an AI blog post and newsletter based as a summary of these podcasts. If you haven't subscribed to that, check it out on LinkedIn. But I do think where I see AI going, to add some comments in here, is for monitoring. For one, to monitor social media to help sum that up and provide good responses, but monitoring sewer and water and gas and helping cameras on public ways, right? El Cerrito has an issue with a lot of people who hop on the highway, I know, who steal packages and then get on a highway and go somewhere else, right? So you have license plate readers and so if AI can process those things, can help us detect leaks in our water, wastewater in advance. I think here in the East Bay, we can embrace some of that, hopefully early as leaders in it. And some of those companies are based in this area. I would look at AI from that perspective. Any thoughts on that?
I think that'll be great, especially when it when you think like the technologies. This is a little going off of the public work stuff, but we think about with stuff like what companies at T-Mobile are doing, where they have their towers way up north that are doing early warning detections of fires. I think that can be great, right? Basically, AI can be our eyes and ears for aging infrastructure. All of our cities have had different life experiences. Hercules is considerably on the newer side because my family moved in here in the early 2000s. We don't have to worry about some of the problems that say Western Richmond has to have for another however many years. But the AI could play into that where it starts saying, hey, we're noticing this X amount of mold is starting to develop, and this is going to be the reason for this. Or we've noticed this is happening. Well, these pipes are starting to, back up their flow a lot more, or whatever the case may be. I think that could potentially alleviate some of the problems that we sometimes have to see where, like a lot of the cities, we tend to deal with an issue once we see it, or we start realizing that it's a problem because maybe your sidewalk popped up in the heat. And now we know, oh, there was a pipe that was wrong, or the cement was a little too old and we didn't realize that. I think they can basically be our calendar and our forecaster.
One of the most important things about our jobs are the protection and safety and the health of our staff. Like, being a good boss to our staff also means protecting it. And one of the things I do see in AI is how can we make sure, especially for our frontline staff, that they have all the tools possible to keep them safe, keep them healthy, keep them unexposed to potential exposures so that they can go home to their families, be safe, be healthy, and be really happy employees for our city.
Let's talk about regional cooperation in every area, and that's important. As chair of the CCTA Citizens Advisory Committee, when any of the cities come for their Measure J funds, I asked this common question on routes of regional significance. How do you work with the other cities around you? And I got to say, 17 out of the 20 entities that came before us were like, why would I ever talk to another city? Because your traffic lights need to sync up with theirs. Talk from your perspective about transportation, economic development, infrastructure, law enforcement. They don't all end at city borders. How can your three cities, as well as San Pablo there and some of the unincorporated areas, how do they all work together? What's good? What's bad about it?
I can talk about the Hercules. So with the Hercules hub, it's ferry train and bus service along our waterfront. And for the longest, we just pitched it solely as a Hercules thing. And that honestly didn't give us much progress. But we started working with some of our other partners around the area, like talking to Pinole, talking to Martinez, and started talking to other cities and bringing in their elected officials. For example, we had Lori Wilson come out here and she supports it, and she's not even our assemblywoman. That cross collaboration has been important because when we talk to folks in, say, Sacramento or Washington, D.C., when we're trying to get money, the first thing they ask is the same thing that you mentioned. How do you work with other people? And we said, we have this letter of support from a Solano County supervisor who obviously is not in our county. We have this letter of support from this state senator who doesn't represent us. Then it shows that we're all in this together because you're right. All of our issues overlap. Hercules has some of the worst traffic in the absolute state. We take pride in being number one and being LA in that category. But at the same time, it's not just Hercules that's going to be impacted by that. It's also Pinole, it's also Richmond, it's also El Cerrito. We all have sat on 80 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we've all wondered ourselves, how can we get out of this a lot faster? So that's where that cross collaboration happens because it's always going to be a strength in numbers. There's 19 cities in the county, and if just Hercules is pushing for something, it's probably not going to have the same weight as if all the cities in West County or even Central or Southern County start advocating for something, and then it just says that this is an important thing that we should do.
Everything else we looked at regionally because it's not an issue, as may be mentioned already. The issues don't stop at the borders. The issues go way beyond that. I sit on BCDC, and right now I've been getting so many emails from people, even from Berkeley, because of the Richmond Bridge, right? That's also the Richmond Bridge is in my district. But if there's an issue with that bridge, it affects everyone all around. So coming up with a solution has to be everyone together. We just happen to have the bridge in Richmond in my district, but it affects everybody. As we're looking to do anything for infrastructure, we have to work collaboratively because as Alex was saying, we're much stronger if we're together. If we show we can get more money as well, when we show that, hey, we're partnering with other agencies, everyone's on board with this particular project. It's not just Alex in the middle of the night try to do something. It's like everyone's coming together, backing up Alex because it's a great project. And when you think regionally, your project is going to be better. You can't just service your own people. You have to figure out how do you move, speaking of transportation, how do you move people from one side to the other? Because then you could also make your city more attractive to others. Because now you have a better transportation system. And you can only do that if you work together. Because you might live in Hercules, but work in Pinole. Working with Pinole makes sense. Or for Richmond, I'm trying to bring in some micromobility to Richmond so that we can move people around. And with that, I've been looking to partner with El Cerrito, San Pablo, Pinole, because they're the surrounding cities. Hercules said, but not just yet, but maybe later on, being able to tie in everyone all together with these projects. Housing is another issue as well. When we look at the unhoused, many of the cities in Contra County believe they don't have a issue with the unhoused. One city told me many months ago when I was first starting out at my first mayor's conference, one of the mayors from another city, who will be unnamed for this time, said, do you know why we don't have any unhoused in my city? And I figured he came up with world's greatest question and answer. Like, oh my God, you are going to solve the homeless problem. And he said, we don't give them services. So they leave our city. Richmond, you give them services, so they go to you. And I was like, oh, that's not the solution. That's actually the problem. So we have to work together so that we all understand the issues. Otherwise, one of our cities is taking the brunt of something while the other ones are benefiting to some extent. Right? But knowing that a lot of these issues go beyond the boundaries, go beyond one city. We are a county and we're multiple counties at times. We can work together. But many of these things could be solved only when we work together.
Tie this topic to what we started this conversation with, which is the importance of having younger elected represented in regional or in local government, but then how we as younger elected are able to see the importance of this cross collaboration when a lot of folks who have been sitting in their seats for 20 years don't necessarily want to rock the boat and really collaborate with other people, because in their minds, it's more about protecting your own resources. Because if you protect your own resources, you can maintain those, when in reality, when you take a step back and look at things from a bird's eye view, there is an economies of scale that happens when you're collaborating with your regional partners, and that can help with some of the really impactful issues like traffic. We didn't talk about fire safety, but fire safety is another huge one, because fire does not know boundaries or borders. It's just going to burn things. The wind we cannot control. It'll take embers quite far. So we have to collaborate on these things. One of the challenges in El Cerrito, which I also mentioned at the top of the hour, is we are right on that border of Alameda County and Contra Costa County. San Pablo Avenue is a really key component to how we're going to be able to solve the traffic issues on 80. And in order for us to really activate San Pablo Avenue, we have to collaborate with Alameda County, because it's Alameda County and Contra Costa County that takes San Pablo Avenue all the way up to the top of West County. Us in El Cerrito, in a lot of ways, we are politically more connected to Oakley than to Albany. And that's really hard for people to understand if you're not in this elected world. We have to make sure that we are being better explainers and being really a lot better at targeting the right resources and the right partnerships to make sure that we are not stopping if we see a stop in the process of, oh, we can't do it because of this. We need to ask why. What can we do? How can we play jazz with this, which is you learn the fundamentals of the music so you can start to make tones and make sounds that we haven't heard before. And we just need to continue to move forward, because a lot of folks, especially, have been sitting in office for a long time. I no offense to anyone, but it's more comfortable to be stagnant. It's more uncomfortable to be in a space of discomfort, but that is how we make breakthroughs. And that is how we can continue to move forward in a better direction for the region.
Sad.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm motivated now. I would go walk doors for you, but you're not running again.
No, but I will be around. I'll be here.
Let's talk about an economic vision for West County. Whether it's 10 years from now or 30 years from now, where do you want things to be? What do you see? How do you see the region, your city growing? It could be sustainability, it could be technology, it could be some cool businesses that are there utilizing the waterfronts.
I feel like Cesar should get started with this. He's got the bones.
It's all about collaboration, right? And as you're asking the question, Jared, I'm just picturing how, like, I reached out. People know this, that I've been trying to get another hospital back into West County, right? And I'm trying to get them in, and I reached out. And when I reached out, I didn't just say Richmond has this population, give us the hospital. I am saying it's a regional thing. This is a population of West County. And as long as all of us continue thinking that way, is whatever little seed we're planting, even if it's our own individual cities, how they connect all of us, we're going to be so much stronger. Because as an individual cities, Richmond's the largest one in West County, but I bring in everyone together because it's going to affect everyone, right? A hospital is not just going to serve Richmond, it's going to serve all of West County. And when we're looking at transportation, we got to look to connect all of West County. When we go after employers, the same thing, and say, not just stopping at our borders and saying, here's what my city can provide you, employer, but here's what our region can provide you, employer, right? Maybe your employees want to have options of housing. They can go to El Cerrito. They can go to Hercules. They can go to Pinole, Zepeda. Obviously, we'll love to have them in Richmond. But looking at us as a region is the only way we're going to really be able to compete against some of these other bigger cities like Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose. We do have a lot of shoreline. How do we better utilize it? How do we attract people to that? How do we make sure that people are aware that Richmond has the deepest port in the Bay Area? We don't use it, but we do have it. We weren't able to compete before because communication never really went out. We weren't really together. I think I love this section here because I'm learning more and more about what Alex is doing and what Hercules is doing and what Tessa and El Cerrito is doing. And I think if we all help each other with that communication, when we go out looking for more employers, looking for more money, looking for more projects, that we talk about what everyone's doing so that people can see how everything's going to be connected. I'm connecting my transportation over to the hospital, right? These are all ideas for now, but I'm moving some of these wheels forward. And as long as I'm able to have people see how we're all going to be connected, then more money can come about. More resources are going to be coming about. And the more they're going to be able to see us as a much bigger, because El Cerrito by itself is 22,000 people.
26.
26. All right. Hercules is small as well. We're about 117. But together we're like over 300,000 people. That's a much better number to go after looking for funding. And it's a much better dialogue to have to say, you've got all of these elected officials. You have all of these individuals that are together to help us all move forward as a region. Because there's so many ideas. I'll pause there, but I'm sure everyone else has some good ideas there.
What both Hercules and El Cerrito have in common is that we have traditionally been commuter cities. And when the pandemic happened and people started working from home, it completely changed the landscape of how people are using our communities. And what I think that I'm thinking a lot about is in terms of economic development, is that we have a lot of residents who are not going to San Francisco or not going to Oakland for work, that they're staying here. And how can we make sure that there are resources locally and that businesses are being supported locally? I'm a big fan of small business, but it's not just small business, that we have to create a variety of businesses to be able to support this landscape. And that also we want to support this, that we don't need to leave West County, because a lot of folks in West County have to leave West County for the things that they need, which is really surprising when you think about how many people live here. And another thing that's really helped us is the Wayfair decision, which a lot of people don't know about, which is that when you're online shopping, you get that the city where you live gets that sales tax. And that's really huge. So people are shopping on Amazon, which people can have their ethical feelings about it. That's fine. But ultimately, online shopping is helping us here in West County. But it can't just be that. We have to be really focused as electeds on how we're creating a diversified portfolio of economic opportunities.
And I love everything I'm hearing. What I see West County as, and what I see it in the future is a lot of the stuff is already here. It's just we're just sometimes compartmentalized in our own little things. Like Hercules, we're the very edge of West County. And I've even had people question if we're in West County. And I'm like, have you looked at a map? What school district would you go to if you live in Hercules? You're going to go to the West County Unified School District, where I would too. But if you think about it, just literally right next door to me, we have BioRad, one of the biggest biomedical laboratories in the entire world. Richmond has Chevron, but they also have a laboratory too. Pixar is just down the road. They're obviously in Emeryville, but I remember when I used to work with little kids, a lot of their parents lived in El Cerrito. You can get educated here, you can work here, and you can stay around here. And all three of us are testaments to that. I went to Contra College to start off my undergrad, finished out in Moraga, and then later with my master's. But everything is here for you to be basically full cycle. Born here, grew up here, and then work here and raise your family here. And we have so many different sectors from education, biomedical, different life sciences. You have folks for public services. So if you want to get into that space, there's something there. I just think that we need to tap into it more and showcase that. And also promote that these are friendly places for you to raise your kids. And that's something that I think that we have overhang of that some of our friends, and this is no disrespect to our friends in Allen County, that they don't have. Where in Hercules and Pinole and Richmond and El Cerrito, wherever, you can have your community events and also have a brand new home. And you can also live in somewhere where you do know your neighbors and you can meet your council member because your council member also shops at the same Lucky's as you do. To be quite frank with you, a lot of our neighborhoods are a lot more quiet, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people move here. So I like to say that Hercules is the little San Francisco bubble in the East Bay because most of my constituents usually there's a pipeline between Hercules and San Francisco. On the middle of Raider and Oakland A's nation, we're the only city that you're going to see where people are raising their Giants flags and their San Francisco 49er flags. And the reason why they wanted a backyard. That is the common theme that people said they came to Hercules for. They wanted something more quiet. They wanted somewhere they can raise their family and somewhere new. And we have that. And if you talk to a lot of people that work at BioRad, they usually live in the area. If they don't live in Hercules, they live in El Cerrito, they're close by. We can harness all that energy to where people don't have to travel far to grow up, get their education, and then contribute those tax dollars back to the community that they grew up in, us three.
Jim Wonderman, the longtime CEO of the Bay Area Council, was on one of my first episodes, and his advice to the East Bay was work regionally. He said Silicon Valley became partly what it is because they all work together across multiple cities to attract new businesses, and they worked with the university. He said the Tri Valley, sure, they benefit from two national labs, and you can't underestimate what that power brings. But if you talk to the CEO of the Danville Chamber, they participate in Tri Valley more than they do with the central Contra Costa County as the San Ramon because they feel like they could all work together towards common interest. And so as I'm listening to all of you, if West County were to come together and say, let's recruit a hospital and let's make it transit accessible and let's make that Hercules transportation hub a vehicle for everybody, that's how you grow economically. It's the power of, it's not this city versus this city. It's let's get together and you can combine your resources. So when you're recruiting a business, everybody chips in to go out to that. All the staff should be working together in a regional format.
What's interesting about this specific grouping, and we didn't give it much time, and because I don't think it's worthy of the time, but one of the reasons why Silicon Valley, why Tri Valley, and everything you highlighted is that there was political cooperation, which historically has not always been the case in West County. And we have representation from Cesar in Richmond, but Richmond is the big dog, and we haven't always been able to collaborate well with Richmond. And that has impacted all of us. So I'm just calling it out as it is, which is the biggest barrier to a lot of West County success has been political. It's not that there's the will, it's that these are political challenges that people have a really hard time having crucial conversations to make sure that we are able to own challenges and share the responsibility of moving through them.
I know I've been talking regionally. Before we head out, does anybody want to highlight something that they're proud of that's happening in their city? Any housing projects, infrastructure, economic development that you guys want to tout?
Oh, of course, the Hercules Hub. Last 2 years, we made so much progress on that. Just last year, President Biden invited me to the White House to talk about it. We were receiving money and receiving support left and right from different people. And just this past week, I was back in DC and met up with folks from the Department of Transportation to talk about it. And we're still moving forward with this project. We're still a couple years out from it getting underway, but in compared to the last 2 years versus the last 20 years, more progress has ever been made. And this has been something where I'm getting mayors from all around the area calling me, how are you getting this money? How are you getting this? How are you getting these meetings? How is this person excited about this? And it's just been us putting in the work and really just re-strategizing it. But to talk about the young electeds perspective, really, I hate that I'm not trying to give myself too much credit for this. But when I came along to the project, I was like, why don't we just start reaching out to everybody? As opposed to looking up and hoping a blessing in the sky would just fall with a bunch of money that would help us out. No, why don't we reach out to external partners at the White House? Why don't we reach out to these folks over here? So I invited Governor Newsom's team. They came out. All of our legislative delegation, they have all came out. And now President Biden seems excited about it. And it's shown the benefit of it. If you reach out to people and you make that cross collaboration, it can happen.
I'll just go in there and saying, I am glad to have a lot of new young individuals coming on and more, and they're and not to be ageist, but we do bring that energy and that thought, and we don't just give up. Oh, look what Alex just mentioned. It's like you're thinking outside. It's not even thinking outside the box. You're just like thinking different
Fresh perspective.
and different perspective. And it's like I brought up an idea of we have to get a new bridge. The Richmond Bridge was not constructed for what is being used today. There's backups everywhere. It is falling apart. And when I started bringing it up to individuals, the first thing they said is, "Are you crazy?" And I'm like, "Yes, but the bridge still needs to be fixed." And then they'd say, "It's going to take such a long time." Yeah. And if we would have started this 10 years ago, we would have been towards the end. And if you don't work with me today, we're going to be thinking it's going to take a long time 10 years from today, and it's still going to take a long time. But somewhere along this, it's going to take a long time. We got to stop and say, we start today. So that long time is no longer as long. And it's going to be costly. That's the other thing I get. Do you know how much it's going to cost? Yes. Do you know how much it cost 10 years ago? And you know how much it's going to cost 10 years from today? And you know what's going to happen if the bridge falls? And then all of a sudden they're like, "Cesar, good idea. Let's schedule some meetings." I'm like, okay, we're starting to think outside in a whole different box and not seeing challenges as roadblocks, but seeing challenges as those opportunities that we should be taking. Right. And one thing that I'm working with our staff is that don't tell me no. Right. Let's translate that no instead of NO. Let's translate it to KNOW. Right. We don't know enough about this yet. What can we continue knowing about this so that we can make it a go? Because a lot of these things, we need them done, and a no just stops it. And if you still need more knowledge and more information, and you need to know, then that is a different perspective. It's a different path that we can take, but we'll continue moving things forward versus just saying, that hill is so steep. We're never going to get to the top. And that's very true. We'll never get to the top if we never take the first step. Changing perspectives. I think the new generation and just new individuals coming into office are not taking no for an answer and really fighting for our community and seeing things that others might have not seen and taking those challenges head on, as Alex has been doing. Great job, Alex. I see you all the time out there and you're doing your model to it. Thank you.
That reminds me of a conversation with Lisa Vandenberg from the BIA. And she was saying one of the biggest issues with housing across the Bay Area is that staff has been trained to say no or to put up roadblocks instead of saying, okay, what do we need to make this happen? What would be the community benefits? How can we fix transportation with this? And it's just that no attitude. I really like your expression there because it fits into it. Tessa, you want to?
Keep this super short. This Wednesday, in one single day, El Cerrito found out that we were awarded about $54 million of grant funding. We got $39 million for an affordable housing project, and we got $15 million for EV charging infrastructure. And that was on a single day we found that out. And it's one of those things where I will be long off the dais when these things come to fruition. But it is so important that this service continues and that we must selflessly make sure that we're doing everything we can to secure funding, to make projects happen, to never stop, because these are the people's seats. These are the roles of the people. And there are times where it's very frustrating. This is very challenging and hard work. I think the three of us make this look really easy when it's not easy at all. But ultimately, this is for the new community members that are going to be living here at El Cerrito because of this housing. It's for a cleaner future because we have EV infrastructure in the city to help accommodate for electric vehicles. And I'm so honored and excited to be serving in this work and then having such good colleagues that we have here because, again, this is the team effort.
Tessa, let's talk about EV infrastructure whenever you get a chance.
Yes, I'd love to.
Technology, and I'm trying to bring some of this new wireless charging because it prevents people from stealing the wires. I have that company coming into Richmond. We're going to be one of the first cities to test it out. So we'll have to roll it out everywhere else. I just think it's really cool. Just like you charge your phone wirelessly, you can do that with your car. It needs
Wow.
to, but it's out there already. And then you could also do wireless roads, wireless charging roads, where as you're driving around, your car can potentially be charging. So you never have to stop.
The future is
I-
now.
I want to just, as that we talk about the young members of the councils who are elected officials, they're talking about embracing and being early adopters of new technology. Forget what the technology was and if you agree with it or don't agree with it, but appreciate that these three are helping bring innovation to your cities and the way we do business. I appreciate the three of you being here.
Jared, thank you for making this happen and being the catalyst for this conversation and all the conversations you've continued to have, that people really know that the Bay Area, don't count us out.
Don't count us out.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jamie.
guys.
Thank you all.
Take care. Bye.
Wait, don't leave yet. Hit subscribe. Make sure you get the weekly updates. We have a new episode every Wednesday for stuff happening in the East Bay. In the meantime, follow me on LinkedIn, Jared Ash, or check out our firm where we have a weekly newsletter and blog at Capstone Government Affairs on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us today on the Capstone Conversation.